This is the sixth session of our Intro to Python Programming class. Today is Saturday, August 12th, and it's 11 a.m. where I am. So we're going to do a number of things today. I would like to continue our discussion about Python data structures. We've spent some time on lists, and the reason why we've spent so much time on lists is that they're versatile and used a lot, but also many of the things that you can do to lists, you can also do to other data structures. Um, so we'll finish up with lists, and then we'll talk about tuples for a bit, and then we'll move on to dictionaries. Now, I guess the first thing I'd like to do really is take a look at the exercise for on day 5, the exercise assigned for today. Again, I don't know how many people had a chance to give it a try. Did anyone have does anyone have anything to say about it?
I have a question for you. Here, I'll
Okay.
turn my video on just so you can see who you're talking to. What trying to figure out how to answer we have no movie of that name. Uh my first instinct was to put in an else statement. And when I did that, I got 6 answers. So I guess what it does is it goes item by item through the list. It goes, nope, not that one, nope, not that one, nope, not that one. Why does the if no statement, how does the programming thinking when it sees that, how does that work differently than the else statement?
Uh, yeah, I can certainly relate to the issue that you had. Here, let me show you what I did. I put an if statement in there. Let's see, this is the one I believe that you start with, and this is the one. This is my solution here. Let me get this out of the way. What I did was I used an if statement. And I believe you mentioned you tried something like that. If you didn't, you had to somehow set a variable to know, or have some sort of a trigger that would cause the program to realize that you didn't find anything. Okay, so what I did was I put in this if statement here, um, in each of the functions, find by year and find by price, uh, and I think find by name. Yeah, find by name as well. Where if they found a hit, it would print it out, right? But if they didn't find a hit, it would stop and only uh, reflect that it searched for the movie and it didn't find it, instead of saying that over and over and over again. Is that what you're saying? Is that what the problem that you had when it
Well, it right under the if, instead of there being an if found equals no, and there being a found equals no, you just had movie name equals input for movie in movie list, if movie list found blah blah, print this. You had a line right under there that said else, and then print, we don't have a movie in that. It was that else that returned, there is no movie named Casablanca, there is no movie named Casablanca 6 times. So I guess what it's doing is it literally has to go through each item on the list to tell you, we didn't find that, we didn't find it, we didn't find it. Why is it that the no, like found equals no, doesn't do that? I guess it's just because it's on the outside of the loop, whereas if you put an else statement, it's on the inside of the loop.
that's exactly right. If you put an else statement on the inside of the loop that says I didn't find it, it will continue to go through this for loop over and over and over again until there aren't any more movies.
Right.
Yeah, that's the problem that you're having. If you, on the other hand, if you don't use the else statement and have an if that's outside of the for loop,
Uh-huh.
it'll only print that once. I think you'll find. Okay, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's a common issue that comes up with people that try to do this exercise in my classes, that they use an else and the else is inside of the for loop. So even though it doesn't find it, it just keeps saying that over and over and over again because it's going through the for loop. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, so anyway, what you had to do here, let's see, take a quick look at a couple. Um, you had to uh, add a couple of functions, right? Instead of just finding a movie by name, I asked you to find movies by year and by cost. So you would have to add a couple of functions to do that. Let's see here. Let's try a couple of these. Okay, so if we run it, right, you got to enter something for your name. Let's make it big. Let's see what we have in there. We say list. So here are our movies. If you say, for example, find a movie by name, and the command is just name. And you say something like Cool Hand Luke. You only get the statement that it didn't find it once. Okay, and again, that's because that if statement is outside of the for loop. On the other hand, if we want to say search by cost, and we use cost, and then we list the price. Let's use one that's got a duplicate, $7.95. It'll find each instance of that as it goes through the for loop, and it will print out a message like this. It should print out a message like this that names the movie, shows the release date, and shows the cost. And I guess the only wrinkle to that, and it's really not much of a wrinkle, is you had to know how to index. You had to index within each list, and the name of the movie was the first item, first element in each list, so that had an index of 0. The year was the second element, so that had an index of 1, and then the cost or price was the third element, had an index of 2. So pretty much there's nothing that's much mysterious about this program except for the item, except for the thing that you brought up, and the fact that you had to add some functions to search by price and to search by year. Okay, so let's see. I gave you my solution, and of course, this is just one solution. There's a lot of ways you can do this. And if you want to look at it further, of course, you can simply compare the two function by function, and you can see the differences in the two programs. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the exercise as far as I'm concerned. Now, let's pick up where we left off. And we were talking about lists. Lists are mutable. Lists, you build a list using a set of brackets to indicate a list. And while we're talking about that, really that's the main syntactical difference between building lists, tuples, and dictionaries. Lists, you use these little square brackets. Tuples, you use parentheses, but otherwise from that, it looks about the same. In dictionaries, you use what are sometimes called the braces. I call them squiggly little squiggly characters. Okay, so just a couple more functions here that you can apply to lists, things you can do with lists that make the coding easier. You could do all of these things, of course, with loops and things we've already looked at, but these functions are made to make it easier. Okay, and what the reduce function does, which comes out of the functools module, it reduces the items in the existing list to a single value, right? So in this example here, which I have on a slide, which I have on a script, we import the functools module so we can access the reduce function, and we define, first of all, we define a list, and then we define this function called add square. And again, what reduce does is it outputs a single number. And then as we apply reduce to it, here, let's do it. Okay, so slide 47. So if I just read this in, run the module, and then right, so it's add square. And then I guess I could just copy these off of here. Right, so our list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, so what it's doing, num list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and it's simply applying add square, which add square, what it returns is just the square of each element added together. Okay, so we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's, I guess, 1 plus 4 plus 9 plus 16 plus 25 plus 36. Alternately, you can also go back, let's see, go back a couple of commands here, and we say, use the optional command start, and we'll say start equals 50. And again, I apologize. What did I do there? It should work just fine. Oh no, it won't, because it doesn't use start. Start is the, I'm sorry, start is the named argument for the add function. And often people will confuse the add function with reduce. And so they'll say start, but what you have to do is just enter the value itself. So it should look like this. And what this does is just simply applies the add square and adds the square of all of the elements that's in the list, and then it uses this one argument to add to the total. So instead of 91, we get 151. Okay, so again, these alternative functions can save you some coding time.